Hey everyone, it's ENDYMION, and today there's all kinds of stuff to go over in this video, from Dragon Age Veilguard allegedly withholding review copies for positive reviews, CD Projekt Red getting ousted by one of their own for pushing DEI in gaming, as well as the biggest grifting group possible being exposed, and once you see it, you'll realize that gaming is dying, and it's not actually our fault, but these woke weirdos instead, and I'll prove it to you. Firstly, I think we should start with CD Projekt Red, because this is very interesting to see. To begin, as you may know, I got into a public spout with the CEO of CD Projekt Red, and then I exposed him for the entire internet to see. He said that they don't hire or use DEI in the company, yet their entire company is riddled with it, and then I used their own resources against them, and it doesn't take a genius to see that they're all lying. So anyway, bringing us to right now, this all started when CD Projekt posted a 17-year anniversary for the Witcher games, where people could praise and talk about the games and share their experiences. It's pretty standard stuff. We see this very often when it comes to any and all franchises in gaming. This then led to Paweł Sasko, the associate game director on the next Cyberpunk game codenamed Orion, to say this in response. When I found out in 2004 the Witcher game was being made in Poland, it changed the trajectory of my life. I promised to myself I'm going to work at CD Projekt Red because the ambition of the studio captured my imagination and inspired me. They were clearly doing something very unique and different, and I wanted to be a part of it. Today marks 17 years since the release of Witcher 1, one of the best stories ever told in gaming, and I feel so blessed to work with people who made it. To all of you who have been on the path with us, thank you, Witchers. Again, it's pretty reasonable stuff. Then another user would then reply to this by saying, "Been there since day one, just don't screw us over with DEI nonsense. We never became fans for politics, we became fans because of the story and characters, simple. To ruin that with DEI will lose you all of your player base that truly cared for the lore and the world." This user is correct, and I agree with them, but here's where it gets interesting. Then a former CD Projekt Red dev decided to reply to this user who goes by Cubutus on Twitter. They currently work at Web3 as the lead developer. Here's what they had to say to this concerned fan pleading to CDPR to not have DEI in their future games. You do realize that Witcher is a universal story about being different and the way the world reacts to it. Geralt himself is an outcast mutant. People throw stones at him. There is such an obvious parallel here, and Ciri prefers playing around with girls than boys. The Witcher is all about politics, from the everyday monster killers to high-profile power plays between kings and queens. All of them with their own abnormalities, physical and mental. Do you really not see the irony of what you just wrote? So this developer just compared The Witcher to being an allegory for being gay or trans. I wish I was kidding, but let's keep going. This user would then reply to this former dev by saying, "You know full well what is meant regarding modern-day audience pandering. Don't pretend you don't." And here is where this former CDPR dev opens the floodgates to oblivion and ousts the entire company, where they say in return, "I genuinely do not know that, and apparently you neither, since you asked the most DEI brand in gaming to not go in the DEI direction. If you, however, meant let's not have an editor with black people in it, then just say it." Very interesting of this former CDPR dev to openly admit to everyone so publicly that CD Projekt Red is indeed a DEI-focused company. But not even just a DEI-focused one, but according to them in their own words, the most DEI-focused game company right now above all others in the industry. This worried me when I read this because it further confirms what I've been saying for a while now, that CDPR is definitely being rotted from the inside out by activism and these DEI policies. By the way, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In case you don't know, it's a corporate buzzword that means you put the identity of people before their talent or experience because you don't want to seem racist, pretty much. It's a push to the bottom of the barrel for many, as DEI has objectively been ruining video games for years at this point. But it's funny how even when they try to twist the narrative and not seem like it's the case, they always end up ousting themselves anyways. Also find it interesting that this former dev took the time to point out that Ciri likes to play with girls instead of boys, so they're what? Trying to confirm that Ciri is now lesbian canonically too? Of course, I would not be surprised for CDPR to change Ciri into a gay icon, or at the very least bisexual, as that does seem to be the easy way for a lot of these games characters and studios to pander with very little effort on their part. I kind of blame Ellie from The Last of Us for this. Ever since that character came out as gay, It's as if every single female hero has to be at least bi, because nobody can be straight anymore. Tila from He-Man, Aloy from Horizon is now canonically gay too, because of course she is. Lara Croft is also gay in the new Netflix show because she's a strong woman. It must also mean that she's gay. So Ciri also being confirmed gay too would be nothing but eye-roll worthy because it's so expected these days. In my opinion, a gay female hero is the new bald-headed Space Marine main character of our time. It's so played out and typical. I'm sick of it, but I do agree that The Witcher as a world is political, obviously. I mean, Geralt literally speaks with and deals with kings and queens at multiple points. But there's a difference here, since political doesn't mean bad as long as the political side of the game's story is not trying to current day you with nonsense 24/7. For example, Geralt speaking to Ciri's father about finding her is a political meaning. I mean, the dude is a king. However, thankfully in Witcher 3, you don't see Ciri's dad talking to you about mass immigration or how there's multiple genders or anything else. As long as the politics within the game's world are kept in sync with what that world represents, then it's fine. For example, Final Fantasy XVI deals with slavery as a core concept with how magic users are treated within the world of Valisthea. Talking about slavery is not frowned upon within a game, nor is any other topic, but it depends on how it's done and presented. Are you using slavery as a way of depicting how dire this world is? Or are you only using it to inject modern-day nonsense into the game's story? For example, there was a post that Savvy, a friend of the channel, made where she shared a photo of some user on Twitter being surprised by the lack of grifting, as they say, surrounding the game Metaphor Refantizo, which I probably just mispronounced. Although I haven't played Metaphor yet or anything like that, I can only assume the reason why nobody has spoken about this game or its underlying political themes is because it is going down the Final Fantasy XVI route, which is to mean the politics within it are tied to its world and not trying to scream Black Lives Matter or whatever else into your face. I'll just read what I responded with because I think it's still relevant here, but in the case of Metaphor, or really you can apply this to Witcher, Cyberpunk, Spider-Man, Final Fantasy, anything else. This is what I mean. I don't think these people understand the difference between talking about social issues versus pandering ideology. By this same mentality, whoever this is pushing this metaphor nonsense, then Final Fantasy XVI is also woke because it talks about slavery. But of course it isn't. The difference is about how it's done and if the writing talks down to the user. I haven't played Metaphor yet, so I can't comment on whether it does this or not, but to say anyone must attack the game because it tackles social issues or whatever else doesn't immediately make it bad. It all depends on the context. And I stand by that statement because there's a difference in how you talk about politics in games that matters. Are you talking down to me and treating me like a child and trying to berate me with social messaging like in Dustborn, for example? Or are you using the politics within your world to tell a story without talking down to anyone but simply exploring something that is overtly political for the sake of the story like Final Fantasy XVI does or Tales of Arise does, or I can only assume this is also what Metaphor does, since either based on its reception and the lack of controversy surrounding it when it comes to its political themes. There's a difference here, but the fact that you have dummies out here thinking just talking or expressing politics is bad just shows you how room temperature a lot of the IQs on the internet really are these days. There's this thing, you may have heard of it, it's called nuance, and it kind of determines how something is perceived by others. So while yes, circling this all back to CDPR and Witcher, the game is political absolutely, but it does not use said political themes to talk down to or belittle the paying customer, so it's fine. Your game's worlds are allowed to have political themes in it without going out of your way to attack people or make them feel villainized. When I see yet another game where the hero is a diverse woman again, and of course your main bad guy is another blonde-haired white guy or something, yeah, I'm gonna start noticing patterns, like with Unknown 9 Awakening, which flopped really hard recently that did just this. But to say that CDPR doesn't have a DEI problem would be like looking at a morbidly obese person and then gaslighting them into believing that their weight and diet have no effect on the longevity of their life. At that point, you're just lying and skirting around issues because you don't want to offend people because the truth hurts. It doesn't help that one of the graphs within CDPR's DEI reports proves that this overhiring practice to meet diversity quotas is actually doing nothing but bloating the company up and wasting their money. Take this graph here, for example, which details between 2021 to 2023 how CDPR spending and budget has been ballooning over the years. Yellow represents service costs, green is research phase costs like pre-production, that sort of thing, and blue is development expenditures, which include things like outsourcing work to other studios or contractors and hiring new people. It shouldn't take you long to look at this graph and notice that, oh wow, the blue part is definitely getting large to an almost concerned level, if you will. And then by 2023, CDPR's development expenses have more than tripled from their expenses in 2021. And of course, the graph here on Reddit, as someone also states, you can see exactly when CDPR begins to embrace DEI as a core concept at their company. And unsurprisingly, once they did and began hiring people based on identity rather than merit, their company became bloated in just 2 to 3 years of embracing this idea. This problem is industry-wide, by the way. A lot of the DEI nonsense you see in gaming studios were implemented and accepted into these various divisions around 2020. Basically, COVID happened, which you know, and then once the whole Black Lives Matter George Floyd thing also happened, this caused a lot of companies to panic and start virtue signaling in response. And during this time, the cheapest alternative to cash influx from investors and other companies was to go for the ESG money, or environment social governance. You'd be given these cheaper grants as long as you withheld the other side of the bargain, which was to hire more diverse people across the board and into positions of power. And unsurprisingly, what we're seeing now in 2023 and 2024 especially is a lot of the fruits of this 2020 ESG grants labor coming out as new products. Dustborn, Unknown 9, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, even Concord, which was in development prior to this influx of cash, still benefited from this too. All of these and more were considered objectively bad games that were not worth their asking prices, and all of them were either greenlit or completed during this time frame. The same goes for movies too, and much more as well. This cheap influx of cash has caused a lot of poor products to get made. It's like the old saying, you get what you pay for. Yeah, pretty much. Studios and publishers saw an easy way to get a lot of money for what seemed like easy demand. So you're saying I get a few $billion? And all I gotta do in return is hire people who aren't qualified for roles within my company? How could this possibly go wrong? And now we're seeing the results, and yeah, everything that could go wrong has. Look at all the layoffs this year, the high-profile fumbles. From a Western standpoint, most of these games have failed outside of Space Marine 2, which is not some DEI game, Helldivers 2, and Call of Duty Black Ops 6, but I mean it's Call of Duty. COD fans will buy anything with the name COD on it these days, regardless of quality. Most of the wins this year have been Asian-made games. Like there was this meme recently on Twitter that got a lot of traction, with someone making a sort of gotcha of a guy saying games aren't good nowadays. And then they post a screenshot where the overwhelming majority of objectively great games are made in Asian countries over Western ones. Like, thanks for proving our point there, Kelsky, you self-owned yourself without realizing it. But to say that CDPR doesn't push DEI only to prove that they do in fact push DEI, but actually it's not that bad because we're actually the most DEI company in gaming according to an ex-employee, which then just makes people go, wait, so you're saying that CDPR is worse than even Ubisoft when it comes to future pandering? Is a hell of a take to have, and also believe that it's some sort of gotcha when it really isn't. CDPR, before DEI was even a thing, made some of the most celebrated RPGs of all time for a fraction of the cost of other AAA games at the time, and they also made insane amounts of money too. The fact that Witcher 3 was made for $81 million and sold well over 30 million copies is genuinely insane, dude. Yet in comparison, Concord was made for allegedly around $400 million and it got taken offline in 2 weeks. It's almost as if the skill and talent of the devs matter far more than the sheer size and bloat in the long run. The best way to visualize this for you is look at the movie, or I guess graphic novel, that's called 300. Would you rather have 300 amazing talented warriors capable of slaughtering everything in sight? Or thousands of useless people who got owned instead, and the only reason that the 300 lose is because one of their own people betrays them to the enemy for easy money given by that enemy. Yeah, there's a lesson in there somewhere, but it proves my point. Witcher 3 CDPR is like King Leonidas. And that weird-looking guy who sells them out is the idiot who took the ESG money, and look at what happened. This is what is happening at all of these studios. CDPR can sit there and say, hey, look, we hired hundreds of people who fit these quotas. But none of this matters if the people hired can't manage to do the job of what 50 talented devs could do. And clearly that is the case, since that graph literally states that the overwhelming amount of spending comes from outsourcing to outside talent for help. which coincides with what I was told by an insider about CDPR in that original video that CDPR CEO attacked me over originally. And yet your own graphs are pointing out that you are absolutely doing the practices you claim that you don't do. And I was told this about Ubisoft and others as well. There is so much incompetence at these studios, and a lot more challenging work is just outsourced to actual real devs who work as contractors. And these contractors make way more money this way because they can charge based on their skills and pretty much just fleece these companies for things their own employees should be able to do but can't. And the amount of hate I got for these things while also proving that they were lying is crazy. There is a blatant DEI problem at CDPR, and it fills me with no joy knowing that even an ex-dev claims that they're the most DEI-focused company in gaming. We're never going to get another Witcher 3, are we? Ugh. But that's the story of CDPR right now. It's a mess, man. So many lies and twistings of words by people whose hands are tied and can't say anything. Oh, we don't hire based on identity at CDPR. Sure you don't. That's why on your website, you detail that you signed something called a diversity charter, which literally forces you to hire based on identity and gender by law, or you get sued. Just stop lying, guys. It's getting embarrassing at this point. Next up, let's talk about Dragon Age Veilguard, which is another weird conundrum, again this time, with who gets to share their thoughts come embargo lifting. So the reviews for Veilguard go live on October 29th, I believe. Maybe it's the 28th, I could be wrong. Maybe you're watching this in the future and the reviews are already out. Point is, they're coming, but it seems that people who were critical of Veilguard in previews have not been given review codes before release. One of these people is a YouTuber named Wolfheart FPS. They did a preview video on Veilguard about a month ago. I watched it before making this video. The footage on screen right now is from his preview that he did on his channel. It's a good video. I suggest you go watch it. He's not biased at all. He just tells you how he feels about it. He also said the art style was not to his liking. He didn't like how everything felt so shiny, so that there was no reason to ponder where to go or how to interact with the world because everything you can interact with has a Fisher-Price golden yellow sheen to all of it. And that from what he played, the story was fine but not amazing, the companions were not the best, and he found exploration to be severely lacking. All in all, he comes to the conclusion in his video that he doesn't think Veilguard will be anywhere close to his game of the year, which is fair enough. Anyway, he got denied a review code. Here's what he said via Twitter. 3 creators, myself included, were a bit more critical than others with our hands-on with Dragon Age the Veilguard. Not a single one of us will be getting a review code with time to actually give opinions before release, just thought I would throw that out there. Please keep in mind, folks, that this does not mean that my more critical opinion is better or more truthful than those who have been more positive. I'm just simply pointing out how marketing works. This also doesn't mean the game will be bad, but it is something to consider. Just as an FYI, I'm not interested in the culture war going on around this game. That is not what my channel focuses on. When I say something good about Dragon Age Veilguard, people throw me to one side, but then I say something negative, I am given a sword by the other side. Y'all are crazy. I would wager that Wolf here alongside Neon Knight, who was also very critical of the game, did not get a review code either. Or I would honestly be shocked if Neon did, considering his video was far more critical of the game than Wolf's was. We also know that Luke Stevens has also confirmed that he was not given a code for the game either, and in his video about it, he said, based on who he talked to about this behind the scenes, that there was as little as 4 codes for Veilguard given out to people in Europe alone, which is crazy, dude. Of course, the usual suspects got their codes like IGN, Forbes, GameSpot, and so on, because they always do. But it's very weird that a lot of these content creators, especially the ones who were critical, did not gain access to the game. It gives Veilguard a really bad look and makes everyone now look at the actual review scores that do come out with a more cynical perspective, and can you blame them? Of course, it does seem that people who were also positive about the game were also not given codes either, according to this other person on Twitter who responded to Wolf, which said, there were also people who were very positive and were also at the event who didn't get review codes also. I definitely think you guys should have been given codes, but I just want to point out it wasn't only people being more critical who weren't given codes. To which Wolf would then reply, I understand that, and I did my research on this before posting. The point is more so that everyone I know of who was critical did not get a code. With 2 of us being heavily involved in the party-based RPG scene. It's just not a good look. It is, however, a good look on the investor side of the equation though. You want my opinion? I think it's shady as hell, and I think people are coping hard trying to act like BioWare is unable to make more codes or something. Look guys, as someone who's been given codes in the past for other games, it's not hard for these companies to do it. The simplest way to explain it is whoever is in charge of generating codes, they literally just click a button, it makes a random code that gets generated, and then that gives access to the game client, and then they just send it out. It's not like giving out codes is equivalent to forging the rings of power in Lords of the Rings or something. They literally just need to generate more codes and are able to do so. The point here is that BioWare and EA clearly do not want more codes to be out on the open. Some say for spoiler reasons, but based on the spoilers I heard, the story isn't even that crazy or anything anyway. It's just pretty standard, typical save the world nonsense. So I don't think that's the reason. It's simply that they want to control the Metacritic score and the information that comes out about this game prior to release. And if they give it to the usual yes men and women, the likelihood of a higher Metacritic score is possible. It just is. But let's say that reviews do come out and the scores are very high. Then, like this Luke Stevens said in his video on this, it'll just make people more cynical and not trust the reviews that are there. Because people will just say, oh, it only got high scores because the positive people got access. You can't really win either way. The way I look at it is simply that the only reason why you don't send out more codes is because you're not confident in your game doing well critically. That's all. That's it. And now every actual review for Veilguard is going to be scrutinized even more for being bootlickers, because why did they get it, but this person didn't, you know? You don't really win no matter what you do in this situation. If BioWare were confident, they would simply give codes to Wolf, Neon Knight, Luke Stevens, and more. Because the more reviews and coverage exists for your game prior to release will obviously boost that game's visibility through to more people. That's just how the algorithm works, and the way they are doing this is just not very transparent or smart in my opinion. For reference sake, Inquisition's reviews came out a full week before the game was available to buy. That showed confidence, and the game ended up becoming BioWare's best-selling game of all time. That's what you should be doing. Give people a week to mull over the positive reviews until the hype just makes them buy your game in response. But doing it this way, yeah, it's shady. My assumption as to why these other positive preview people didn't get codes could simply be that whoever these people are that gave Veilguard positive press, I don't know who they were referring to by the way since they gave no names, but my assumption anyway is that these channels are very small since the Dragon Age community is very niche, and a lot of channels that cover just Dragon Age or BioWare only are not exactly the places with large audiences. So maybe BioWare thought giving their game code to someone with, I don't know, 2,000 subscribers or less was a waste in their opinion due to low viewership potential. But then again, this is also dumb, because wouldn't you want these yes men and women to review your game and then build up the hype? None of this makes any sense to me. To me anyway, it just feels like BioWare and EA knew that they need to control the flow of information extra hard this time, and that's what they're doing. But the fact that people like Neon Knight or Wolfhard and especially Luke Stevens couldn't get access to an Electronic Arts game of all things prior to release, that is baffling to me. Like I said over a month ago, I think Veilguard will be given favorable reviews and coverage by the usual outlets because of what the game represents in the grand scheme of the industry. And we've been proven far too many times already that these games journalists for the most part cannot be trusted whatsoever. I mean, you got stuff like Gaming Magazine, a website that unsurprisingly based on the name focuses on LGBTQ+ stuff. Anyway, it got revealed by people like Grums that this gaming magazine demands insane amounts of money from publishers for them to feature your game during their live streams and award shows. Publishers can pay for things like social media posts with guaranteed impressions of 600,000 views, which is a weird thing to promise. And the only way this can be guaranteed is simply that Gaming Magazine uses bots to artificially boost their viewership levels on social media and more. Because if you look at their official YouTube channel, for example, none of that makes any sense. The channel has an abysmal amount of subscribers for a so-called official publication. Not only that, but as you can see as I scroll through their content, their videos get ludicrously low viewer counts too. Some of these videos get as little as 2 views. For hour-long podcasts, this is laughably bad even by their smaller channel standards. It just paints the picture that this gaming magazine was, and their partners are, the real industry grifters. For example, look here. If you want a 300 by 250 mobile and desktop promotion on their site, it's $1,800. I assume that's an American. If you want 2, it'll be $3,000. Again, they guarantee at least 100,000 views on these posts somehow. Sponsored content is $1,500 for an 800 to 900 word article and $5,000 for a more in-depth article. And if you want them to post on their social media like Instagram or Twitter, it's $750 for a post. Or $1,000 if you want them to post it on social media and their story. They are literally grifting companies to pay them in the thousands to show their products, and then these people tell you that there's no agenda or anything. Okay there. But then it gets worse. They also have on their website how much you have to pay to promote your content during the gaming award show, which is something they do once a year like the Game Awards does as well. Like, dude, check this out. If you want to be a presenting partner for the Gaming Awards, which this magazine live streams on YouTube and whatnot, it will cost you $125,000 to be shown during this ceremony. To just sponsor the event and be called out as a sponsor, it's $80,000. To be a sponsor of a single category of awards is $45,000. And just to be shown as a supporter of the award show, that'll net you $20,000. So how many views does this award show get, you may be asking, for this ludicrous amount of money being spent on advertisements? The Gaming Awards show in 2023 got a combined total views on YouTube of 1,200 views. 1,200 views, and you can promote your game there or your company or whatever for the low price of $125,000 American. Bro, why am I doing my content like this? I should just make my own awards show and give it a buzzword name that is socially aware, and I could grift millions out of these companies every year. If you were a company or publisher or studio and you were paying anything more than $2 and some schmeckles to promote your content on a stream that gets less views than one of my normal videos get in 2 minutes, you are an idiot. You just are. There's no other way about it. You are a moron. And then these people have the audacity to call me and others grifters when they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars fleecing you so you don't feel racist or something. Insane, man. Truly.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
These are the grifters of the industry, the real ones, and this sort of thing is exactly what places like Sweet Baby Inc. and others are doing as well. I can only imagine how much Insomniac paid Sweet Baby to work on Spider-Man 2. It was likely over $1 million easily. Imagine paying $1 million plus so someone can ruin your product and cause your studio to have layoffs. Amazing. I just really wanted to bring light to this issue because these are the real grifters of the game industry. They are demanding insane prices for impressions on videos that generate sometimes as low as 2 views per video on their YouTube page. Come on. The Gaming Awards should be abolished, not due to intolerance, but for market manipulation and the obvious grifting of these companies and finances in the name of social equality. Remember that big blue graph in the CDPR DEI picture part of this video that I showed you? This is the kind of crap they're supporting, a complete waste of money, time, and energy that is being pushed by woke grifters that are manipulating thousands of publishers and studios into giving them money so that they don't get labeled racist. I have never seen a more obvious grift than this, my dear viewer. Do not support this magazine, website, or channel. And this is what companies want to invest in instead of the thousands of channels that do infinitely better, objectively. You gotta be kidding me, man. Unreal. My streams in my bedroom get more views, and it's just me using my laptop. You can't be serious, guys. This is the absolute state of the industry. They'll say that I'm lying to you, but that's what these actual grifters do when they're presented with the facts. Reject their nonsense and always call them out. They can't keep getting away with this. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Thanks to my patrons and members. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. $125,000 for 1,200 views. You gotta be kidding me, man. All right, I'm done. Bye-bye.